Welcome to the Elite BSC podcast, where our entire focus is helping commercial janitorial contractors succeed. You want a growing company, a thriving team, and healthy profits, and we are here to help. My name is Jordan Tong. I'm the founder of Elite BSC, a company dedicated to helping janitorial companies grow and thrive. I also serve as CEO and one of the owners of France Building Services. France is a janitorial company employing nearly 600 people. Since 2007, we grew from 1.5 million to more than 20 million in annual revenue and built what I think is one of the best teams in the world. The goal of Elite BSC and this podcast is to give owners in the industry a vision of where their company can be and the information and tools to get there. I want to share what I have learned over the years to make this a reality for you. Hey guys, Jordan here. So a question I want to answer today, it's one that one of our members in our group asked. It's been a while since this question was raised, but they said, I had 3 right prospects in my sales funnel right now. What is your sales process from proposal to closing? And they went on to ask a few follow-up questions like, what is once I've submitted my proposal, like what does that look like? And, how do I follow up and do I make calls? How do I go from being one of 4 bidders to actually landing the deal instead of just sitting around and crossing my fingers and hoping everything works out well. So, and this is a valid question, and I think, as we've done more and more marketing work for janitorial companies, one of the things that I've seen is some people seem to be more successful at closing deals, and other people struggle a little bit more to close deals. And I'm not intimate enough with each of those situations to be able to know exactly what reasons there are for a higher close rate than others, but there are some things that I think are broadly applicable. We'll call them tips or things that you can apply to maybe improve that close rate once you've had opportunities to submit proposals. And we want to do this. We want to make the most of it because getting an opportunity to bid it takes a lot of work to do that. And so, sometimes that can take a few months to get in the door. Sometimes it can be a year or 2 years or 3 years. We recently just bid on an account here at our company that we've had our eye on for over 10 years, probably closer to 12 or 15 years. It's just never come up for bid. And finally a decision maker changed, and we're having an opportunity to look at that. And so we don't want to screw it up. We want to be able to give it our best shot and maximize our chances of being able to close the account. So I want to offer up 4 things that I think can maybe improve your chances of closing a deal. And this would apply to our industry, but I think it applies broadly too in selling as a whole, and particularly selling services. And so these aren't necessarily in any particular order, but I think all of them apply or can be helpful. So the first one is team selling. So, and what I mean by this is just that there's multiple people from your organization involved in the selling process. And so this actually starts before you're actually trying to, close the deal or submit a proposal or whatever. This could start as early as, during the walkthrough phase. It's just that more people from your team are introduced to the prospective customer. And we want to be careful and selective here. You want your best of the best to be there. You want it to be the people you're going to bring to be able to be professional, to speak well, to be able to represent the company well in that particular situation. But it is nice over time for the prospective customer to get more touches with people on your team, because one of their biggest fears in making a switch is, is this company that I'm going to hire going to be better than the company that I've had before? And that's a legitimate concern. And another question that they want to know is, all right, how do I know you're not just the sales guy? And as soon as you're great, I love working with you, but as soon as we close this deal, you're going to hand me off to someone that I don't know, and they're not going to be as good as you. And so we can kind of overcome this objection by introducing them to our team. And one of the things this can do, in addition to making them build trust, maybe in like relational trust with us, is that it helps them see the depth of our bench, and they know that there are resources there to help make sure this account is successful. So I would encourage you, if you can, to bring some of your key people along in the process. Maybe there's an ops person that's there at the walkthrough. Maybe there's, another leader or a key leader that's in the proposal meeting, if you're able to get an in-person meeting, for instance. I think that can be helpful and can help move the needle in closing the deal. All right, so number 2 is in-person presentations. Now, I realize I sound like I'm from, 1995, because people don't do many in-person presentations anymore, and I get that, and I know that sometimes your hands are tied a little bit here because customers they're a little bit, they don't want to go through the hassle of setting up meetings and having to meet with people and listen to your spiel and all that kind of stuff. They you just email me the proposal. And we certainly end up doing that a lot. And so when you're not able to do the in-person presentation, hopefully you've really worked the relationship before sending that proposal. And, so that it's not maybe as big of a hit that you're not able to get that in-person presentation. And a lot of times what ends up happening is, there might be a lot of bidders on something, and they're going to whittle it down to 2 or 3, and then they're going to do presentations, which that is fine. And there you need to make sure you have a good proposal, succinct, and a price that's reasonable to get yourself into the next round. But if at all possible, I would be pushing for that in-person meeting. And because there's just something about it where people have to look you in the eye and shake your hand and hear you talk about the process. You get to watch their body language as you describe things. You get to interact with them, handle objections in real time as they come. And, if you're anything like me and you enjoy the selling process, this is what you love. This is what you live for right here, is those moments, those meetings in front of that client to prove yourself that you're the person for the job. So if at all possible, I would do that. If not, I think if you don't have that opportunity initially, I think using some form of video or being creative with how you present can be helpful. And I think video is a powerful way, and it's so easy and cheap to produce decent video that there's really no excuse to not be able to do that. So that's number 2. Number 3 is asking hard questions. So, and by here, I don't mean stupid questions, or we've all been on walkthroughs where there's somebody that comes through and they just ask ridiculous questions, and they're dumb questions, and we all cringe, or they start wiping everything down and talking about how dirty the facility is and blah 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 blah. But we do want to ask questions that really get right to the point of what the customer or the prospective customer is looking for, right to the point of where the objections are or the things that matter most to them, right to the point of why or why not they would choose us, what is holding them back from picking us as a client. So I want to ask them specific, pointed questions, and if they don't want to answer, that's fine, but I'm going to ask it anyway, of how does my price stack up to the other people, and is it a apples-to-apples comparison? Is there anything what is preventing us from getting this job? Like, okay, you have proposals. What is it that's keeping my company from being the one selected? Is there anything that's standing out there that's a concern of yours that prevents us from being your choice? Early on in the process, before we get to the proposal phase, I'm going to always ask about their budget. You got to kind of feel out the person that you're going to be talking with. You don't want to just say, hey, where does my price need to be? But finding out the information you need is again, asking some really pointed questions. And here's the key to doing this well, I think, is to ask questions in as short of form as possible and then to shut up. We all tend to want to, particularly when we get nervous or when we feel like we're on the hot seat or whatever, that we don't have the upper hand, we tend to talk too much. And silence in the conversation is just it's a deafening silence, as they say. And so we our nervousness, we fill the gaps with our own talking. And we need to develop the discipline to just shut up and to ask the pointed question and then let it sit there. And even if there's a period of time where the conversation is quiet, let the uncomfortableness of the silence affect the customer, the prospective customer, just like it affects you. And let them talk. And then ask follow-up questions. We want them to talk as much as possible and not us to talk as much as possible. It's just sort of anytime you're debating with anybody or discussing things or trying to build rapport with somebody, the more questions that you can ask, the more it's just going to engender trust from the other person. And their willingness to share. You walk away from a conversation, if you have somebody that is a good conversationalist, it's not that they talk so much, it's that they ask you a lot of very inquisitive questions and they probe and dig and that sort of thing. And you can walk away from the conversation having said 80-90% of the words and been like, man, it was so great to talk to that person. Well, it's because they let you talk and they were interested. And so I think that same sort of principle applies here, that we want to ask questions and be okay with hard or uncomfortable questions, and then just let them talk. And I think this can uncover some information you probably wouldn't get otherwise. So the last tip would be to pressure with purpose, but don't annoy. And so here's what I mean. So you're going to deliver the proposal, and there's going to be a period of time between when you've delivered the proposal and when they are ready to make a decision. And, you sort of don't have a window into that process. And so you're walking this fine line between being persistent and pestering them. and we want to do the former, but not the latter. So we want to be persistent with them. We certainly want to do that. But we also don't want to annoy them or pester them. And we all know what this is like. We've had good sales experiences where somebody will come to us and they'll be selling us something, and they are persistent in doing that, but they've done it well, where almost I appreciate their persistence. Even if I don't buy from them, I'm not put off by it. But there's been other salespeople that felt like they were pressuring me, or they were needy, or they just would not leave me alone, that made me not want to buy from them. And I would reluctantly buy from them if I did, in fact, have to buy from them. And so we don't want to be that either. And so I would encourage us to lean into them. And maybe one of the ways we can do this maybe more effectively, instead of just saying, hey, have you made a decision? 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 Is to, when you follow up, let there be some purpose in it. So perhaps there was a question that was asked during the proposal, and so you've got some sort of documentation or some answer to that question or whatever, and you respond with it, and then inquire about where things stand. And then if you don't hear anything again, maybe send them a reference letter. Hey, I had another reference letter from a client similar to you all. I just thought I'd pass this along. I don't know if it's helpful or not. They'd be willing to talk to you as well. Let me know if there are any further questions I can ask. Do you know when there's going to be an anticipated decision to be made on this? And you can see you're being persistent. You're being, humble in the process, and you're not pressuring them necessarily. And you're really okay to not get the job too. You have a confidence about you in this process. And so this sort of pressure, I think, can be a good thing. I don't know that it necessarily moves the needle in your favor. I think if someone is maybe indecisive, I think it could move the needle in your favor. And I also think if someone's really waffling between two companies and you are the more persistent, proactive one between the two, I think you would get the nod because of that. So these are the 4 tips that I have. I'm sure there are others, and feel free to hit me up if you're like, Jordan, you really swung and missed on that one, or you left something out. But I think team selling, in-person presentation, asking hard questions and shutting up, and pressuring with purpose but not annoying, I think are 4 things that can help us improve our close ratio and land some more deals, which is something we all want to do and we get excited about. And for those of us that are entrepreneurs, like this is what gets us out of bed in the morning many times. So I hope this is helpful. We got more resources on our website, elitebsc.com. If you're not a part of our group, we'd love to have you to where you get more content like this on a regular basis. Listen, I hope you guys have a great, or well, I guess when you listen to this, it'll be after Thanksgiving. I hope your Thanksgiving was a nice time of relaxation and enjoyment of family. And as we enter the holiday seasons, I hope it's a good time for you and your business and your families. We're always here at Elite BSC to help. If you have any questions, feel free to reach out to us, and we'll see you next time. If you found the information in this podcast helpful, please like and subscribe on whatever podcast platform that you're using. If you would like more resources or help to grow your cleaning company, head over to elitebsc.com. We have loads of articles, videos, free tools, coaching options, and a lot more. If your company is greater than $500K in revenue and you want to take your learning experience to the next level, check out our mastermind group. You can learn more about that at elitebsc.com/mastermind.